This is crazy. From just one person, you did a $20,000. What was that?
And what I want to let everyone know is that there are no rules in business. Everyone has all of these rules about you should do this is the way to do it, you have to do this first, you have to do one-to-one coaching. It's rubbish. You got to do what you're passionate about first.
What other aspect of the things that people can have to keep in mind to have a good number of closing from their event and the upselling goes in really smooth way without hard selling?
It is your duty to be filthy fucking rich. And I don't mean you don't deserve it. No one deserves it, but it's your duty. And I mean that really profoundly because money is an instrument of change. And whoever said that money can't buy happiness, honestly, they have not given enough away.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Entrepreneur's Warrior Show, and I'm your host Nilesh Jain, and I'm back with another powerful interview. And as the name of our podcast is the Entrepreneur Warrior Show, so today we have another amazing warrior. He is not a person who is going for a war, but his entrepreneurship journey is a kind of warrior story. So he is a $1 million event guy. He is a CEO of Beyond Impact. He's award-winning philanthropist, one-time monk, and the $1 million event guy. He helped businesses, coaches scale with events, and he loved teaching business how to create their own world-class events and inspiring audience with his keynote speeches and philanthropies. And over 20 years, Brody and his team have run over 1,200 live virtual events. So right now, I just have used his name, so might be you got it. So without further ado, let's have super incredible guest Brody Lee on the stage.
Hi everyone.
Hi,
Thanks
Brody.
so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this incredible podcast with you.
Beautiful.
Yes. So being the event guy, how was the energy you found in me? Like you are the one who is hosting event all of the time, but today you are somebody, you are a guest and I'm the host. How was your feeling?
You want me to rate you live on air? That takes balls, man. No, you did a great job. Great intro. Really awesome speed, cadence. Your tempo was good. The tune and the tone was awesome. So I feel it like I'm in good hands.
Oh wow, amazing. So Brody, before we start and we go with the more about you and your business, but can you please share your backstory? Like how did you begin? And so the people who is watching this podcast right now or listening to this podcast might be have no idea. So can you share like more about you, about your story? How did you started in the industry?
It's a long one, so I'll try and give you the condensed version.
Yeah.
Essentially, I fell into this to the personal development, business coaching kind of event space in this context by accident. But I have been running events for over 20 years in various different formats. Previously, prior to this, I was working for Apple and I was responsible for 29 stores in the Canadian market, funnily enough. I'm Australian. I'm back in Australia at the moment, soon to move to New York, but I was living in Toronto in Canada at the time. And one of my roles there was training their leadership and executive teams and their store teams on how to sell one-to-many. And that's essentially the core of what I do is teach people how to sell from stage to sell in large groups. And so I was very fortunate. I was there for 8 years and I had a PhD style education in selling one-to-many and running events as well. Like that was the core of what we were doing. But the story really begins on May 23rd in 2017. When I unfortunately woke up from a massive drug overdose that should have killed me by all means, like I was a whisker away from death. But when I wake up from that drug overdose, there was my mum, my dad, paramedic, and a police officer all looking down at me. And when I looked up, I had this instant thought that came through me. It was like, my God, Brody, is this really how you want to live your life? And I screamed an expletive out. I'm not sure what your audience is like here. I screamed an expletive out and I said, F no. And it's funny, they were thinking I was reacting to them being there, but what I was reacting to was the situation that I found myself in. So in that moment, I had like a decision to make. And what happened was that when I woke up in that moment, I kind of woke up to life again. And I made a commitment to myself that I would be I would be committed to figuring out what happened in my mind, body, and spirit. And what was happening in the lead up to this was that about 3 months prior, I'd started having some really, really savage and disjointed memories were surfacing that were very disconnected, and I couldn't place them, of some sexual abuse that happened to me when I was 6 years old in school. And so I spiraled out of control, my drinking increased, and I relapsed on a concoction of drugs and meth. And when I was much younger, from the age of 18 to 24, I smoked meth every single day for that period. And what actually got me to Canada to link this through was I ran out of Australia. I booked a one-way ticket out of like desperation, and I was able to build up my career there. But in the context of this very confusing and very like discombobulating experience of these memories that were fragmented, and I couldn't place them, and I wasn't sure if they were real, and all of these things, I didn't cope. And I was in therapy at the time, but it just spiraled out, and it culminated in the relapse and the overdose. But in that decision that I made, that I was going to figure out what was happening in my mind, body, and spirit, at first I used a considerable sum of cash out of my own pocket to put myself in the best rehab in the country. And I did that, and they were very happy. This is my third time in rehab, actually. I'd been to rehab a couple of times when I was younger, and obviously they didn't work. But then the third time, they wanted to give me another label. I'd already been labeled an addict. I'd already been labeled codependent and all of these other things. And previously, but to be honest, like the term addict I never really identified with it, because I didn't consider myself, even though I smoked meth every day, I didn't consider myself falling into the category of what you would normally associate with an addict. Obviously there was addictive tendencies and everything, but what I discovered was that there was so much more to the story. And this is the same with everyone that suffers from addiction, is that, politicians love to moralize and use them as a wedge issue and everything. But behind every single person that's going through those sorts of things is usually trauma. And there's usually depression, there's anxiety, there's all of these different things. So at this rehab, they told me that I had complex PTSD, and it just added another label into the mix. And I remember very clearly while I was there, I said to the therapist that diagnosed me, I was like, look, I completely understand and I respect your diagnosis, but I utterly reject it, because this is not going to be my story. People who have complex PTSD either end up dead, institutionalized, or in jail. And I'm already institutionalized. I'm in a rehab, right? I'm kind of forced to be here to try and figure things out. And so I completed the program and everything. And but then I decided that I was going to look for answers elsewhere. And so I found my way to various different personal development events. I did the Landmark Forum, and eventually I found myself at a Tony Robbins event. And what was really interesting was that at that event, they had previously, it's funny, I was supposed to go the year before when I was in rehab, and they wouldn't give me my money back. It was the promoter wouldn't give me my money back. And they said, you come next year. And I knew that Tony had a guarantee that if you weren't convinced after the first day, he'd give you your money back. And so me, being the little upstart that I was pissed at them, and I was pissed at Tony. I didn't know that it was a promoter that was denying me. So I went in and with the thinking, like, I'm going to beat Tony Robbins at his own game, and I'm going to go in, I'm going to get my refund and everything. It's funny, within 10 minutes of me arriving, I was down the front dancing with all of the people that were down the front. And I had found immediately a tribe of people that like these were my people. And I'd really struggled with that from 18, like I was in a party scene and everything. I never really felt like I belonged. And this is on the back of back then, I did really well in school. Like I was a star pupil, school captain, all those things. So the downfall was quite dramatic when I was 18. So coming into this environment, it was like suddenly it was very uplifting. Everyone was happy. Everyone was hugging me. And it was a little bit almost overwhelming, but I really enjoyed the presence of this and the music and the way that they constructed the event. And so the first night I walked across 2,000-degree hot coals, and I've now done that 14 times. But the real transformation for me, and this is what leads into the business stuff, the real transformation basically happened on that third day. We did a process called the Dickens process, where I was able to experience what life would be like if I'd continued living the life that I was with the trauma. And Tony takes you through that process, and then an experience of what life would be like without it. And by the end of it, I had collapsed the trauma of the abuse. It just wasn't there anymore. and it wasn't something that was holding me. And it was really powerful, because what happened next was in a number of mind moments. So when that happened, I was like bawling my eyes out. I was this sheer relief and thinking, wow, this is incredible. And I had this split second moment where I was like, hang on a second, if I really want to continue with my life here, and if I really want to move past this, then I have to forgive my abuser. And I have to find a way within myself to send out love
Yes.
and energy to this person. And so I did that, and I did it, and I sent out love, and I said, look, I don't know where you are in the world. I don't know if you'll receive this. I'm not particularly woo-woo, but in that moment I was like, I'm sending this out. And I just said, I forgive you. And you must have been really hurting to do that to a little boy. And it was a teacher. He was a teacher in my school. So and so I was 6 years old. And in that moment, it was really powerful, because once I forgave him, something whooshed over me, and it was like all of the weight in the world lifted from my shoulders. And what I realized was that by forgiving him, I also forgave myself for everything that I had put in my body, all of the damage that I'd done, all of the things I'd put my family through. And it was really powerful. And I've reconciled it now, that in that forgiveness, I found a future. And so I was celebrating, and once that happened, I experienced what I can only now describe as pure, unadulterated joy, which I had not experienced since I was 6 years old. My mother used to call me her joy boy. And that teacher, he put out my light at that age. And at this event, I got that light back. And it was phenomenal, because I was like, this is like incredible. This is who I truly, truly am in my core essence. And I celebrated, and I was like, oh my goodness, I want every day to feel like this. And then I was like, no, I want everyone to feel like this. And I made a decision. I was like, I rationalized in my head that, if I can experience this level of joy without drugs or alcohol or anything mind-altering in my system, then I am never putting another mind-altering drug or chemical in my body ever again. And I have not since. It's been 6 years, and the decision was final. Like, I'm so good now that I keep alcohol in my house for guests when they come, so that they feel okay about being around me. And it's just not a part of my life anymore. It's completely erased from my consciousness, really. And so from that day, I made a decision that I wanted to make my life be about impact. And my business was grown out of that. And I started a coaching business to begin with. We do these funny mind tricks on ourselves about what we think we're capable of. And so I started really small. But within my first month of starting that business, I ran an event, and it tanked. It was horrible. I boosted a Facebook post thinking I was smart running an ad. And it was obviously, I know a lot more about ads now. And I had 40 registrants to this event. And at the time I was a performance coach. Because that's part of my role at Apple. And so I'll do that sort of stuff. And one person showed up to the event, and I was devastated. It was horrible. And I was a performance coach at the time, and I had to follow through and deliver. So I delivered it, and I made $20,000 at that event. And I quit my job the next day, and I went all in on growing my business. And I did some phenomenal things. And I don't share these results to impress anyone, but just to impress upon you what happens when you're not moving from a place of woundedness, and you're in this place of controlled will with what you're doing in your life. I did 6 figures in 10 weeks. I did $1 million in 10 months, and I did $1.3 million in my first year. And then the following year, we did our first $1 million event, which is where all my branding now comes from. And the beautiful thing about this is that I'm an events guy. I love being on stage. It's where I shine the most, even on camera right now. I love this. And I love sharing that with people and giving back because of the experience that I had at that event, right? It changed my life. So it's deeply, deeply personal to me. And I love what I do.
Man.
I hope that's short enough. I'm sorry. Normally it goes longer.
No, but it's something really great. It's means you went through a lot of downs in your journey, but you just keep going. You just find that something has to change, something has to work on myself, and that's where you decided that no, this is my step. Even you decided to take a refund from that event, but I want to show up.
Yeah.
And I think it's you are talking about the Tony Robbins event, the UPS, UPW.
That's
UPW.
Right.
That's a really powerful thing. Then that event have give you a lot of transformation, and then you find that this is something I wanted to do this, is something I wanted to do. And like, guys, this is crazy. From just one person, you did a $20,000. What was that? What
I was
was
just
that?
selling. I was just selling performance coaching. It was a one-to-one relationship for a whole year, and I was just meeting with them, and it was remarkable because I wanted to cry, to be honest. Like when no one showed up, I was like, because before the doors had opened, I went live on Facebook, was showing the room, and I just actually posted about that today. I showed a picture, like a memory of it. The room was full, and I'd just done all this marketing, and then one person was there, and I was like, oh, okay. But it's funny. It's kind of like, it's interesting. It's kind of like I forgot everything that I knew about events because it was my first one in this environment. It turns out I actually know a ton about events and getting people to show up and everything like that, and that's been built into our model. But it's funny. We can often coach things to other people, but when we implement ourselves, we're not as good as doing it. But I vowed that day that I would never have an empty room ever again. Like it just wasn't for me. It's so important for me when I'm on stage, and this is for anyone on stage. When you're up there, you're vibing off the person's energy and you're getting energy from everyone around you. The irony is that for most people at an event, they think they're having a beautiful experience, and they are. But what they don't know is for most presenters is the presenter is having an even better experience. And most of my events now, when I walk off stage, I am more energized than when I went on because of all of the people that I've interacted with. And it's such a gift to be able to do that.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So now, as you mentioned a lot of things about events. So if the people who is watching this right now, like you are also serving a lot of coaches, entrepreneurs to help them to launch their events. And my audience is also coaches and entrepreneurs. And now they are watching this podcast, listening this podcast. If they wanted to launch their event, when exactly they can start launching their event? Is there any specific things they have to keep in mind? First thing, when they have to launch their events, like, are they in six figure in their business, or even in five figure they can launch their event? And if somebody is starting planning to do it for the very first event, what kind of event they can launch? Is it in person or is it virtual? What kind of things
Great
you can
question.
suggest?
Yeah, great questions. And what I want to let everyone know is that there are no rules in business. Everyone has all of these rules about you should do this. This is the way to do it. You have to do this first. You have to do one-to-one coaching. It's rubbish. It's rubbish. You got to do what you're passionate about first. So if being on stage is something that you would love to do, then you can run an event at any time. If you want to teach and you're a trainer and that's how you want to run your events, amazing. You can do that at any time. Obviously, it helps if you have an audience of people that are already bought into you. But if I can in the very early, like in the first month of me running my business, if I can run an event and make $20,000 from one person, then anyone can really do it. It does help, though, if you have some experience with a few different things. Obviously, you've got to be like, you have to write, because you need to write copy and you need to write ads and content to get people interested. And if you're going down doing it via a funnel, and we teach about 8 different ways that you can fill your event. A funnel is one of them. Some of our clients fill their events with a Google Doc. Like it's really, there's a whole smorgasbord of ways that you can choose. But basic skills and things like copywriting help out if you don't have the cash to hire a copywriter, right? Other than that, though, like other than the ability to write, you don't really need anything except for something to sell. So you're selling the event, and we help our clients design an event ecosystem that fits with their income, their impact, and their lifestyle goals. For a lot of people, they might want to run an event to flood their current business and all of their offers that are already working with new clients. And that's great. And we help people do that. One good event could be the equivalent of, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of sales calls at once, right? If you like, Tony Robbins gets tens of thousands of people there, and basically his events are all designed around sales. That's what they're there for. So that's one avenue. And the other thing that people sell is events. Like I sell, but there's only 2 things I sell: events and a very, very high-end consulting. So for most people in my world, if they're making less than 3 million, they come to our events and we do it together in a group. If they're above 3 million, we do it consulting, because it's a slightly different thing that we work on. With that, so if you've got an offer, you've got some basic skills in copywriting, the rest we train you on. So we train you on different things like So first of all, we help you build the ecosystem. That's part of what we call setup. And so we set up this ecosystem of events that fits with whatever your goals are. And then there's kind of 4 other steps. So there's the show up piece, which is all around, filling the event with red hot and ready to buy leads that are pre-sold on working with you. Like they're already really familiar and they're primed to work with you, and they're ready to buy whatever your high ticket offer is. So that's like the marketing side of things. Then as part of that, as part of the show up, we also put in like, what does your sales mechanism look like to get people to the event? Are you running a free event? Are you selling them in? How are you selling them in? Funnels, sales calls, whatever you want. And then from there, we move into what we call blow up. So you blow their minds with inspiring content and delivery so that they are touched, moved, and inspired to want to work with you. And so this is where you deliver what you deliver and what you say from stage. And it's very, very important that people realize something that most people don't get with events. Most people think that the purpose of the event is to deliver content. And whilst content delivery is important, the purpose of an event is to sell. And so your content has to be specifically designed in mind with how is this contributing to my end goal of selling people in? So every word that comes out of your mouth is carefully curated to support the sale. And so we engineer a lot of the content around that. Next piece of the puzzle is pay up, and that's basically like how to create an amazing offer that people are itching to buy. So we go through all the offer dynamics and those sorts of things and how to sell from stage. And we work with our pitch playbook to give people the certainty and the confidence to be able to get up there and sell their offer. And the last part of that is like, obviously when you're doing this from stage and on Zoom and everything like that, you can potentially get a large influx of new clients. And so we help them manage what that influx looks like into their business so that they don't break. It's usually the owner that breaks. So we make sure that we have systems set up for them. And the last piece of the puzzle is around scaling up. And so that's all about developing systems, an amazing events team, and then driving profitability with their events. So that's pretty much everything that's worked on with the event. But to your question about what's better, virtual or in person, doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. It really depends on what your preference is. Virtual is great to test things out because you don't have any overheads. But some people hate being on camera. They'd much prefer to be in a room with people. And so it's really up to you. And sometimes people get frustrated. They're like, just tell me what to do. And I'm like, that's the thing. For an event to work, you've got to work on your being and make sure it comes from a place of where you're really, really comfortable. Because if you're in your element and you're shining, then people will be magnetized to you. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever's right for you. Yeah.
That's super interesting, man. And you nailed on every point, every aspect of growing like events. Like if you have any upselling, you need to create content in such a way that it is going to drive people towards the whatever the end product that you are going to offer to them. So like when you had a great experience in one-to-many selling and you had a great experience in $1 million sales, what things people have to keep in mind when they are upselling their products from such events? Like one thing you already share, that create content in such a way that it is pushing towards, or not pushing, but it is actually driving them towards the end product that we are going to upsell. What other aspect of the things that people can have to keep in mind to have a good number of closing from that event and the upselling goes in really smooth way without hard selling?
Beautiful. I hate hardline selling and all of those bro sellers that are like, you must buy, rah, 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 rah.
Yeah.
I don't like that style of selling. It obviously works for them, but it's not. I don't want anyone walking out of one of my events feeling like they've been pressured into anything. I want them to be able to make the decision of their own accord and be really, really empowered by that decision. And there's a lot of engineering that goes into that. The way in which we operate and what we talk about is that your role is to get people from curious to committed. And how you do that is by 3 steps. So first, you need to serve at a very, very high level. And that means delivering world-class content that is probably your best stuff, but is engineered in a way that it solves a problem for them, but also creates a problem downstream that you can then link back to when you're selling. So you go, you know what? Okay, so we resolved this for you, and now you've got this thing. Hey, my offer just so happens to resolve this challenge that's now there. you, right?
Nice.
So the engineering, that's the through line through. So you got to serve at a really, really high level. And the other piece here is that you also need to seed. And what we mean by seeding is that you're not only seeding, client results and seeding your story and, your authority and whatnot, but you're seeding that there is a current reality or frame that they're operating in that's not currently working for them. And it's really important that you call that stuff out. We do a lot of work on this and helping people to understand the current reality of their prospects. And I don't mean just basic stuff like their fears, frustrations, wants and aspirations. That's pretty basic stuff. And we do that. That's part of the marketing. We go through those sorts of things. But we really want to get into the psychology of that person so that we truly understand what it is that's ticking in their lives at the moment, that's creating this curiosity that something needs to change. And we work on their being in the event. So for something to work, for someone to make a sale, or for you to be able to teach them anything about business or their bank account, there's kind of three things that you gotta touch on. And the first one is like their being, how they're showing up every single day, how their soul is, all of those sorts of things. I'm not woo-woo. I don't mean soul in a woo-woo sense. I'm just like, how are you? The other thing that you want to look at is their balances. And by balances, I mean relationships. I was just having a conversation with somebody on my team about this the other day. Balances meaning relationships. Like, how are their relationships being affected right now by what's going on in their business and in their world? And then the last part of this puzzle is we want to look at things like then we can progress up and we go into things like, okay, well, once we understand this, is that audio okay?
All good. I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. And so the third part here is that we look at their body. Like, how is this manifesting in their body? And usually it's creating tension. And for a lot of people, they don't actually realize the tension that exists in their body as a result of this, right? And so we highlight it and they go, okay, once they realize this and we've pointed it out and we've like pushed some buttons really, right, in the nicest way possible, then we can have a conversation with them about their business and their bank balance, and then you can sell to them. And so that is the seeding part, right? So you're seeding, like, this is your current reality. We do all this sort of stuff, and then we can seed into their future reality about what's available to them. And so when they implement the things that you're going to teach them or that's in your offer, et cetera, et cetera. And the last piece of that, serve, seed, and the last one is the most important one, is sell. Now, I have this statement that I drill into every single person at our events, is that it is your duty to be filthy fucking rich. It is your duty to be filthy fucking rich. And I don't mean it's you don't deserve it. No one deserves it, but it's your duty. And I mean that really profoundly, because money is an instrument of change. And whoever said that money can't buy happiness, honestly, they have not given enough away, because there is something really powerful about having the means to be able to give to other people. There is, I carry cash on me all the time. And whenever I see a homeless person, I never go past them without sitting down, having a conversation and giving them cash. I cannot tell you how nice it is to be able to do that, but how profound it is from a relational point of view as a human being. Most people that are homeless are sitting on the street and no one acknowledges them. And that must be soul destroying for them. And they're very bare bones. And so I have the cash to be able to do that. And it's powerful. But one of the things that we work on in our events, I mentioned this before, we talk about their impact and their income goals. The second part of that, the impact, we talk about this in terms of, impact being, the type and scope of impact you want to directly have with your events, with your clients, all that sort of stuff, the amount of money you want to generate for it. And then with that, how you're going to contribute to the world with that money. And the contribution, most people think, it's about giving the money away. That comes, but the first person that you're going to contribute to is yourself. So like, this is my personal buy-in. And this relates very directly to the sell. Like, when they're selling on stage, you've got to have a keen understanding of the effect that this sale is going to have on me. First of all, what am I going to do for myself? And then we talk about their loved ones, and then the community, and then the world after that. And those layers, when you stack them on, it makes someone go onto a stage with far greater certainty than they would if they just, I'm just selling my little offer here or whatever, because they have this entire spectrum of the gross impact, or what I like to call the return on impact of what they're doing by standing on stage and selling. Now, this statement that it's your duty to be filthy fucking rich is something that some people have a little bit of a challenge with, because we're programmed by society with all of these different money things. Most people, the goal is to get to a 6-figure income, and then screw the rich, rah, we want to yell at them and everything. But that, like, I never achieved anything in life by yelling at anyone. I achieved things in life by getting to know them and getting into their world, and then really figuring out how I could serve that person at the highest possible level. And so when you're selling from stage, what you're actually doing is you are serving. You are serving at a high level. And in the past, if you think about my experiences in rehab, and this is how deep it goes, is that what got me into those rehabs was a sales process. And Tony Robbins' sales process as well. They were so certain in their ability to change my life, they would give me a refund, the promoter, right? And I'm so grateful for that, because that saved my life. And so when I'm on stage every single time that I'm selling, it's not my job to push people over the edge to make a decision, but it's my job to get them to the edge, right? So that they can step forward and jump. Because for a lot of people, just being in this environment at your event is probably one of the largest steps they've ever taken. It's one of the bravest things they've ever done. So if you can get them up to the ledge, even if they, at the point of decision, they step back, you don't know the impact that you've had on their life and how profound that could be. And if they take that step over, it's a testament to not only the job that you've done in holding them to the fire, but in them making a decision that's going to change their life. And how dare you rob them of that opportunity by not selling? And that's the things that I like to talk about and we like to think about when we're selling and we're teaching it.
That's powerful, man. That's really powerful when you're talking all of the things and the 3 S: sell, serve, sell, and
serve, seed, and sell. Serve, seed, and
serve,
sell.
seed, and sell. Yeah, serve, seed, and sell. That's really powerful. And the very important point what you share here is a sell, because Tony Robbins sell his event to you, and you transform your entire life.
Yeah.
You are able to transform your entire life, and that's where what statement you are. This is hard, really big mic drop things you dropped in just a couple of minutes right now. Like, it's your duty to become wealthy, and it's your duty to serve, not just become wealthy, but when you are giving it, you are feeling happiness. And definitely money is the happiness when you are giving. Whenever I give charity to people, I feel very happy. I feel like, wow, God give me an ability to give.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm blessed that I have an ability that God is giving me, that I'm able to serve more and more people.
Yeah. And we have a statement in our business that kind of aligns to this. And I think the false narrative that's out there at the moment is that business and capitalism is bad. But at the end of the day, if you look at it, capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty. Like, for all of capitalism's faults, and it's not perfect, it's lifted more people out of poverty than any other monetary system combined, which is powerful, right? And so I talk about it in terms of like capitalism for good. And I have this statement in the business, and it's a question, and it says, what if every time we do business, something good happens in the world? And I mean the good in terms of the people that we're serving immediately in the room, as well as the goodness of, okay, cool, that's going to change my life with the income that I'm getting out of this. It's going to change my family and my community. And then this really cool stuff that I'm doing in the world. And I think that that just compounds the need for people to be able to sell. When you think about it like that, it doesn't, money's not a dirty word. It's a good thing. It actually makes the world go round, right? But just what you said about your charitable giving and everything, I think just for people that are thinking about these sorts of things, I know we're talking about events, but for those people who are thinking about giving, a couple of things to keep in mind. That 80% of the world's population live on less than $10 per day. Now, 75% of the world's wealth is concentrated in the top 20%, and the top 1% have 5 times more wealth than the bottom 80% combined. Now, it's very easy, very easy to get disheartened by this and to look at the 1% and say, screw you, I used to be one of those people. But I take a very, very different view now. And the reality is that when you give money to people in the 80% and below, right, living on less than $10 per day, they've done studies that have shown, ironically, like who would have thought, when you give poor people cash, it makes them less poor. Who would have thought? But what they do with that money, for every $1 that you invest below the poverty line, another $5 is creating in the economy. And so where some people think that trickle down economics is the way to work, where rich, like tax breaks for the rich will allow them to create more jobs, and we see that doesn't work because they line the pockets of shareholders. Nothing wrong with that, but what I'm trying to create in the world through the impact that we're talking about is that is an awareness that we can actually create an environment where everybody wins, and it's not a zero-sum game. So when we invest that money below the poverty line, we give freely, we give our cash. And I mean give cash, like I give cash. It's funny. Like for the period that I was using drugs saved my life. They really did. They really did, up until the point where it's not workable anymore. I've had people say to me before, why do you give money to homeless people? They're just going to use it on drugs. And look, once the transaction has happened, it's actually up to their self-determination, and they have agency to be able to choose what they do with that. If in that moment they need drugs to get by, who am I to kind of stop that? But what we know is that when you give cash to people below the poverty line, they start businesses, they save, they educate their family. And what happens is that other $5 is created in the economy. It takes this spiral approach. Everybody wins. Governments get more tax and all of these sorts of things. And so I would encourage people to also think about the impact that they're creating at their events, by extension of that, doing good things in the world with it. Because I think we absolutely need to be able to eliminate poverty for everyone to come forward and to survive, and for us to develop as a world. And so these are some of the projects that we're focusing on through our events. We look at things like sex trafficking, we look at things like feeding people, clean drinking water, and climate change. And I'm not saying that you need to give to, like, if you can't afford to, but if you have the capacity to give freely. There's some amazing organizations like B1G1 that we use at our events that can do like 1 cent meals, and you can embed it into your business with APIs and all this cool stuff. And I think that, back to my statement before, like whoever said money can't buy happiness simply hasn't given enough away. We have a really unique opportunity in the world to serve, to seed, and to sell, right? And if we're using that to serve people in the room, we can use it to serve other people as well.
Wow, interesting. You have a lot of nuggets to share, and every point is something that is a golden nugget you can, and it is going to change the mindset of thinking of how I am giving it, and what of the things you shared right now. Amazing. Thanks for sharing this really powerful statement and all. So, Brody, being in the industry from last 20 years, doing challenges from over 20 years and all, what was the most challenging situation in your time while you are doing event, like the first ever event where you have only one person, but after that, is there any specific challenging situation with your event or
Yeah.
your client event? How did you tackle that?
It's not quite an event that I want to talk about, but in terms of a business model.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
And I think this is really instructive for people, because at the end of 2021, what happened was I built a traditional business. At that point, we were running our own events, and we were teaching people how to run events within a program. We had a broad business coaching program. Obviously, off the success of my first year doing 1.3 million, people started asking questions. And so I just transitioned into that. And thankfully, it saved me during the pandemic. It's one of the really challenging things was here in Australia, when the pandemic happened, I was scheduled to be on the road for 36 weeks of that year. I had stages booked, events booked. And overnight in March, I just came back from the US from an event. And the day after I came back, Australia locked down our borders for 2 years and we weren't able to lead. I lost millions of dollars overnight. But out of the ashes of that, we created the virtual event, and in a studio this is before people were doing good studio events. And we created one that was, and I said to the team, I said, you know what, I'm going to hold people on Zoom for 3 days. I'm going to put them when we do that, and they're going to be with us for 3 days for 16 hours a day, and they're going to walk out more energized and say it was the best event they've ever been to. That was my $1 million event. But what built out of that was that the business kept scaling, and we scaled, and we were doing really well. We were having these amazing events and everything like that. But I built a traditional group coaching business. I had a client load of 100. I had 10 team members, and at any given time, 110 people were vying for my attention, demanding my attention. Despite all of me setting up coaches and leadership and all that sort of stuff, at the end of the day, like, I was responsible for all of it. And it weighed very heavily on me, making sure our clients were getting great results, all those sorts of things. Unfortunately, it caused me to go to a very, very dark place. And I started hating what I was doing. I only enjoyed when I was on stage. The rest of it was it was like grinding. And so I made a very difficult decision at the end of 2021 to blow up the business and to find something that was better for me. It no longer served me. And so I made my entire client load redundant. I made my entire team redundant. And I went out and set out to create something more magical that was more in my image. And the one thing that was the constant that put me in my shine was the events. And so I created what is now the $1 million events model. And I'm not the first person to do this, but as a strategy for myself, is I decided I only wanted to run events in my business, and I didn't want masterminds. I didn't want ongoing coaching. I would take on a few really cool people to do some high-end consulting with them, maximum of 5 at a time. But ultimately, what I wanted to do was run events. And that's what I did. And I started building, like, it took me a while, by the way, to get to that. And, I'd already had all the strategy and everything like that, but it took me a while to figure out that, like, do I want this? Don't I want this? So I wandered around for a little bit. And I would say probably over the last 12 months is where I've really started to shine with it, and the business is kind of rocking again. But, when I made this decision, my revenue collapsed from Q1 to Q2 in 2022. It collapsed by 70%. So I was used to like a certain income and lifestyle and everything, and I had to dramatically change that. And it took some time for us to build up again because I was unsure about what I wanted. So the instructive part about this is there's 2 parts to this. Is that for you to have a successful business, the first thing is that you absolutely must be certain that what you are doing is serving you. And the minute it no longer serves you, get rid of it. Change gears, be brave. Because I probably didn't like what I was doing for a good 12 months before I made that decision. And it was 12 months of pain for me. And the second one here is that so be absolutely certain that you're doing what you love. And the second thing is have the courage and the bravery every single day to go in and build that thing that you want, and be okay with changing gears too. If you've decided doing something and then you don't like it, then that's totally fine. Like a gear that I'm exploring over the next 6 months, and we're building these events and everything. I'm going, maybe I do want another mastermind. Maybe I do want to have that regular contact with people. And so I'm exploring what that looks like. I haven't made a decision yet, but I feel like I'm in a much better place to do it now because it's in a context of which I love, and I'll build it. It's funny, the old one, I constantly felt like I had to add more calls and value and all these things for people because they were demanding. It was very broad spectrum. So we didn't just coach events, we coached all things to do with business. And I think maybe with a little bit more targeted approach, maybe the masterminds for me, but for the moment, it's just our $1 million events intensive. And from that, I sell people into the $1 million pitch intensive. And then from that, I sell them into the $1 million traffic intensive. So we look at paid ads and everything. And that's working well. And I love that. But who knows what happens in the future. And that's just this business. Having the time and space away as well also gave me an opportunity to look at where could I have the most impact in other areas in the world. I'm very big on impact, as you know. And so I've got some really exciting projects that I'm building over the next kind of 5 to 10 years that will really change the face of humanity and still be around event stuff, but in a much, much different way.
Nice, man. That's interesting. And what you share is really important to keep in mind. Like, if that is actually not serving you, and because of that one thing you are getting burned out, try to get rid of from that. Try to get rid from that and do what you are loving to do. That's really powerful lesson you just shared from your experience. But in the like, you had a lot of downs as well in your journey, like
Mhm.
when you see a lot of ups but at the same time you see a lot of downs.
Mhm.
So have you ever thought to quit in your journey? And
Oh, all the
if
time, all the
yeah,
time.
so how did you
Especially,
put
sorry, what was the question?
so how did you keep yourself in the momentum, like whenever you are thinking about quitting, how you are keeping in the momentum? You are saying something, but yeah.
Yeah. Look. When I realized that I hated what I built, I wanted to throw in the towel.
Hmm.
There's been times as well, and like initially, that revenue drop. Like I was facing bankruptcy at that time as well.
Yeah.
I built a lifestyle, and I had all these like commitments financially and all that sort of stuff. And so that was really, really, really tough. And my ego took such a battering with that as well. Here I am telling people how to grow $1 million businesses, like the old coaching stuff, and I was like in the face of bankruptcy. And the reason why I got to that is because I was not in love with what I was doing, right? And
Hmm.
so I've thought about throwing in the towel, yeah. And there were some dark days there when I was suicidal as well, and it was really like I wanted to throw the towel in on everything. But it's funny, for me, I remember back to that day when I woke up from the drug overdose, and I was given a gift, and that was a gift of continuing my life. And so one of the things that I'm blessed with is there's two things that every day I'm blessed. I think about. And one is the fact that I'm alive, first of all, and the other is the fact that I'm drug and alcohol free. And if so long as I have those two things in my life, like everything else will work out for me. And so when I'm in those moments when I feel like quitting, I remind myself that it could be very, very, very different. And I also think about the contribution side of things and the impact from a global point of view. That statement, it's your duty to be filthy fucking rich. 80% of the world's population live on less than $10 per day. My first world problems are nothing in comparison. And so I think about that, and it usually kicks me into gear. And Tony Robbins has this amazing statement, and I'm pissed at him that he coined it because it's great. And he says, the secret to living is giving. And I think when you're in those moments of despair, it's actually quite a selfish. I'm not saying don't get there. We all get there, right? But if you think about it, you become very insular in your thinking, and it becomes very much about you and not about the people that you're serving or the impact that you could have or about your family. And you go very inwards. Now, we all need to do that sometimes for sure. But if you choose to sit in that, and I know there's some very pessimistic people in the world, you only have to jump online and see comments on ads and comments on things to see all of that sort of stuff. But I take a little bit of a contrarian view. No matter how tough things are, if you have life, you're good. Like we're floating on this little speck of dust in an infinite universe, going around this fiery ball, right? Like the chances of us being here, somebody calculated it once. The chances of us being here, like being born, like 1 in 40 trillion or something like that. And
Yeah.
so, given the opportunity, and like we're here, so like here's another thing. So if you were to put, and I think this is all the things I think about, right? When I'm in there, if you were to put all 13.8 billion years of history, and you were to collapse it into a 24-hour period, and so all of history existed in 24 hours. The time that you and I inhabit on this earth, at the moment, this point in our lives, is probably what, say, midnight is today, right?
Yeah.
And but our time on this planet, the 100 or so years that we're here, is probably like 100 million trillionth of a millisecond to midnight, right? And so we are here in the course of human history. We are here, but for like not even that, right? We're here for a moment, a mind moment of history. And so, given the choice to have my life mean something and to be about impact, or to live in a place of despair and sitting and wallowing around in my own self-pity and all of those sorts of things that we all love to do and we're encouraged to do by society, I choose impact every single time. Now, I'm not perfect at this. I don't want to say like I'm some messiah and I'm some prophet and whatever. I have all of my bad days and everything like that, but I can usually snap myself out of it by thinking about the impact and all of those sorts of things. So, yeah, that's what I do.
Wow.
Plus, I
Lovely.
run, I biohack, and I do all of the other things and exercise, gym, blah, 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 travel.
I see you have you love a lot of travel and all of the things. I am seeing a lot. Yeah,
Mm.
amazing. So, what's your daily? Sorry, you are saying something.
Well, yeah, just on the travel, like
Ah,
I'm very fortunate that I'm in a position to be able to travel widely. From a very young age, another part of my story, when I was 10 years old, my parents, I was raised Buddhist. My parents took a particular strand of Buddhism with a bunch of other hippies out to the West. It's a very secular form of Buddhism. They built temples all over the world. And I've been brought up in that environment. I ordained in Burma as a monk, as a samanera, like a young monk, a monk in training, at the age of 10. And I had this very profound experience traveling. It was my first overseas trip. Monks do something called an alms round, where they take a bowl every day and they walk around and they rely on the kindness of strangers to give them food and money for the monastery and everything. I was walking down doing the alms round one day, and this lady came out from her house. I'm not supposed to make eye contact, but I caught her eye. She had this beautiful smile, but she was skin and bones. And what happened was that she didn't give food to anyone else. She gave food to me. And she was beaming with her smile, and I wasn't supposed to look at her, but I smiled back at her. And I remember thinking very clearly at the time, I'm like, wow, this is probably her last food, or it's like she's probably not got much more. But this is what she wanted to do. She chose one person and give it. And I had this very distinct moment of, wow, this is unfair. And what I realized later in life is that was my first experience of injustice. And I got it through travel. And so one of the reasons why I travel so much is that I love being immersed in different environments and different cultures and learning from other people. And what I have found when I have traveled the world is the people who are the poorest are often the most happy. And so there is things to be learnt from people living below the poverty line, because they create a beautiful quality of experience despite all of the challenges that they have. We are very spoiled in the West. We are very spoiled in countries that are capitalist and in developed countries. And so that travel is very important for me. Also, I'm a nerd. I love flying. I got my pilot's license when I was younger. Every time I'm in the air, I feel like I'm at home. I do my best work. So I like to get on a plane just for that as well. But yeah, it's very important.
loved it, loved it. So, we are about to end the session, and it's really powerful podcast with you. Before we close, what kind of daily habits you are following right now for yourself to grow on daily basis?
Yeah, really, really, really good. So I want to let people know that some of these are really hard for me to do, and one of the reasons is that I have depression, anxiety, and so when I'm in a depressive bout, the most that I can do is maybe wake up and watch something, and maybe, if I'm lucky, get out of bed. And so I'm sharing that with people because it's funny, when I'm on stage, when I have a stage coming up, it's never like that, but it's like in the lulls in between.
Yeah.
But why I say that is sometimes the bravest thing that you can do, and the biggest thing that you can do, is actually get out of bed, right? So I want to set that as a baseline for people. If you manage to get out of bed, like, all the power to it. You are doing so well. You are doing so well, because there are people that can't get out of bed. There are people that can't walk. There are people that can't do these sorts of things. If you just wake up and get out of bed, amazing. But from a like a routine kind of thing. So for myself, it's very, very important. So I normally rise with the sun. I don't set alarms. I just kind of wake up naturally. I'm an early bird, which is great. And sunlight's probably the most important thing for me to start the day. And so my mornings usually consist of me waking up and either running. I'm a big runner. I'm a marathon runner. Or going for a walk in the sun. And that's very, very peaceful for me. I'm not great at this, but I try not to be on screens in that little morning time as well. But sometimes my screens kind of come in. And so from there, I usually do a little bit of reading. And then I kind of get ready for my day, breakfast, all of those sorts of things. I don't have it super crazy. I used to be very militant about, I would have a cold plunge and all those sorts of things. And like, I turn, at the end of my shower, I turn it on cold just to kind of do that. And then in terms of like my productivity, it's interesting. I used to be really in on the nootropics and all of those, in like brain optimizations and everything. But these days I'm actually finding a lot of peace and solace in just eating really, really good quality healthy foods, and not putting these I know like they're chemicals really, and I made a decision not to put mind altering substances in my body. and these are legal, and they're actually like they support neurogenesis and all of that sort of stuff. But at the moment, I've taken a step back from that, and I'm just exploring what it's like to just be fully present as I am, without anything else. But other things for me, really important that I get to the beach. I'm very fortunate in Australia. We have wonderful beaches. That ocean water is really serene and good for me. And the other part is just working out and going to the gym and everything. So I'm not super crazy from a habits point of view. I used to be, but they're the basics, and they serve me quite well.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing. And this is something really powerful. And what you said just now is very important to understand for each and every one of us, including me and including all the listeners. Like, it's not like even if you are successful, even if you are at $1 million, there is a time when you are going to face depression, where there is a time when you are going to face anxiety. But how you are dealing with it, how you are working on that time is very important.
Yeah.
So thank you for talking that one thing.
Can I just add in one more thing? I know we're close to time here, but here's the main thing that I do to keep myself amazing, and that's events, both facilitating and going to them. This is really important. So if you look at all of the different strategies out there to grow your business, most of them have only been invented. A lot of them only invented in the last 20 years, and most of them probably in the last 100 years, like sales calls and stuff like that. But humans have been coming together to connect, to communicate, and to engage in commerce for 300,000 years, ever since we have been on this planet. And if you think of things like, Apple with their big sales events, right? Think of Elon Musk launching things, Donald Trump's political rallies even, right? Like, they're all selling something, whether it be an idea or a product. And in times gone past, you had like blood sports at the Colosseum and all of these things, right? Events have been a constant. And the reason why they are so powerful is because when people are together, they thrive. And then the other thing is when people, when people are together with other people, that's the other thing. Sorry, and when people are together with you, you strive. And what I mean by that, there's a clear distinction between them. Is that we need other people around us because we are communicating beings, and we vibe off their energies, the connection, even the touch is really, really important. But also when we are around other people, we are led by their example, and we strive to be better around those people.
Yeah.
When we truly connect with someone on a deeply profound level, hate doesn't exist. And when you are around other people, that's another thing that I also do. Is like, we got to get just around people to as part of a habit, right? To get that connection. There is no better place to do that, either on stage or as part of an audience. So whatever the context, you're going to a concert, you're going to a sports match, you're coming to one of my events. Please come to one of my events. I'd love to host you. But you're literally engaging in a practice that has defined humanity since our inception, and is the reason why we have actually developed, and we are the apex of animals on the world. And it's because of our ability to connect with each other and communicate like that. And you cannot get that experience anywhere else but an event.
Beautiful. And when you share that for you it's event, so at the same time I realized, like, for me it's a podcast. Whenever I do host podcast, whenever I host with the guest, it is creating a different experience altogether to me.
Yes.
Even I had a very bad day, anything happened, but when I am on this stage, which is my podcast platform, I'm like, this is my thing.
Right. And I think that's a really important thing, is that no one can tell you what your element is, of course, right? And this is a very, very, very key thing. So there are so many different business strategies out there. There are so many different ways that you can grow your business, and they all work. Podcasts, sales calls, events, whatever, right? Every single one of them works. But your role and what you need to do to be able to truly thrive is find what works for you. And I guarantee you, like, I've changed my niche multiple times, from performance coach into now events and all those sorts of things. Constant thing. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Please, like, if what you're doing right now is not working, please don't despair. There is something that will work for you. You just need to kind of like really analyze and have a good soul search on what it is that you truly, truly want. And for me, that was, I want to just be on stage. So that's what I built, and that's where I'm at right now. and yours is podcast, which is great to see. So I trust and hope that you're in a system right now, to everyone listening, that serves you. And if not, go find out what it is and have the courage to make those changes, because from the other side, I can tell you it's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is. So thank you so much once again, Brody, for being on the podcast, sharing a lot of nuggets, and being vulnerable and openly share everything what happened with you. And so it is really inspiring to listen you, to learn from you, and definitely people is going to get a lot from this one podcast. So thank you so much once again for
My
being
pleasure.
here.
Thank
And
you for having
yes,
me.
and all the people who is watching and listening to this, make sure you can show love to Brody. And one thing is, keep in mind, what is the one action you are going to take from this one podcast? See, learning and listening is not that important, but the most important thing is, what is the one action step you are going to take from this one thing? So that's one thing you can drop in the comment section. And yes, where do people connect with you, Brody?
Yeah, where can they connect with me? So you can
Yeah.
go to my website, brodylee.com. Or if you want to watch some training on events, go to get.milliondollar.events and you can watch that. And that can kind of help you out. And I'm on all socials as It's Brody Lee. So you can grab me there and reach out to me that way.
Perfect. I am going to drop all the link in the description, in the show notes. Go and follow him. He's an amazing person. That's it. Till then, Nilesh Jain signing off from the Entrepreneurs Warrior Show, and have a great day. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.